Let's talk about the Sony ZV-E1. Very unscripted, very open. I'm taking questions from people here on Instagram Live. We're going to go live in a second. I've got some questions here from an Instagram story. Let's just jump right into it and have a good old chat about Sony's new, latest, greatest creators camera. All right, we're going to go live. So the purpose of this is I'm actually recording a video at the same time as doing this. I'm doing a very open style Q&A about the Sony ZV-E1. So if you have anything you want to know about that camera, anything whatsoever, spent a couple of days with it last week, feel free to ask in the questions, in the comments here. I've got some questions I'm going to start with, and we're going to get right into it. Lots of people joining. Hello. Hey from Vancouver. Hello. Just in Vancouver a couple months back. Namaste. Hello. How are you? You want coffee? No, I'm good. Thanks, Zach. Zach's downstairs. Just went and grabbed one, actually. How's the overheating on it? Oh, we're getting right into it, eh? All right, let's address this overheating first, because this seems to be the biggest thing I see a lot of people talking about. So we used it for a couple of days last week in San Diego. San Diego is typically hotter. It was not hot in San Diego whatsoever. It was actually quite rainy and dismal. It was very much British weather. I didn't personally have any issues with overheating. Shot a lot with Lee Zavitz, didn't have any issues with overheating whatsoever. Lee mentioned that Jevon did a test, sat down for 35 minutes at breakfast time, recording nonstop, zero issues with overheating. David Manning, he had an issue with overheating, but it turns out the camera wasn't set to the highest heat setting, so you need to change to that immediately, otherwise you probably are going to get heat-related issues. But I personally did not have any issues with overheating whatsoever, and I did shoot only video with it a lot. Now, that being said, I only shot in 24 and 60 frames per second in the most compressed version, but I did not have any issues with it at all. Now, when the camera comes in, I get an actual review version, because that was technically I don't think it was a production firmware. It was, from what I was told, it was a performance firmware, as in the performance isn't going to get any better, but it may not have been a production-based firmware. But when I get an actual review unit, hopefully within the next couple of weeks before NAB, I will do some full overheating tests, because that seems to be the biggest thing that people care about. What else we got in here? Used it for interiors yet? Nope, didn't have a chance. I'm assuming you mean real estate. Not yet. I would love to test it out for real estate to see. I do want to say that I don't think this is a camera. There's a lot of confusion with this camera. I don't think there's I think a lot of people think it's any camera that comes out nowadays is better than an A7S III, is going to be better than an FX3. It's not. There's different categories of cameras. It's the same way you have a point and shoot, you have a DSLR, you have a mirrorless, you have a cinema camera. There's different categories of cameras. So just because any brand comes out with a brand new camera, it doesn't mean it's the latest and greatest. It means it's satisfying a certain need. And in this case, the camera is for... It could be for people like me when I'm making YouTube videos like this. Would I take it and shoot with it at a wedding? No. Would I take it to probably shoot real estate? No. Am I going to try? Yes, but I wouldn't rely on it for professional purposes for a few reasons. A, no EVF. B, no dual card slots, and that worries me. It's a much smaller body, so there is going to be more issues with heat. I didn't have any, as I said, but when you have a smaller body, there's less ways for the heat to dissipate, so of course you're going to have issues with it. But I wouldn't use it for professional reasons. If you want to vlog with it, cinematic vlogging, great. If you want to make short videos with it in the studio like I am right now, probably be fine. So I think there's a lot of misconception with this camera, and everyone assumes it's the latest and greatest. It's not. It's a different category. I think you have to think about that. Christopher, spelled interestingly, nice, says, is it better on photo than T? I'm not sure what that means. Can this camera really replace the A7S III, and also tell me about the heat capabilities? I think we just discussed that in full. It's not meant to replace the A7S III. It is an A7S III sensor, from my understanding, inside a much smaller body. So you still have those you have those two base ISOs for low light performance, which you really don't have in any camera that size with vlog functionality. So that's a big thing. But no, it's not meant to replace the A7S III. Again, misconceptions. Hi from Thailand. Hello, loving the hair. Yeah, the hair's pretty bad right now, actually. I was wearing a hat earlier today, but don't care. Stopped caring a while ago. What else we got? No EVF. No EVF. They just chopped that right off the top to make it smaller. And it is a very, very small camera. When you use it, it feels tiny. We were all using it just forgetting that this was essentially an A7S III sensor in it. And it's just, I put the video in to take a look in the computer and just amazed, because it is the same sensor. We get beautiful images out of the A7S III, so why wouldn't we get beautiful images out of a ZV-E1? Seems like a great vlogging character, I'm assuming camera, but other than that, I wouldn't use it for weddings. I was thinking it could be a possible choice for real estate. Potentially. When I get it, I'll see if I can shoot some real estate stuff with the wife and see what we can do. I would be worried about it overheating though if you were shooting consistently for a longer period in 60 frames per second. It's asking for it to overheat, but we'll see. Nice hair. Hey Emilio, yeah, lots of comments on the hair. What's up, superstar? How's it going, Justin? Setup is looking dope. Thank you. Finally, like, good in the studio. It's been a few months now, but I'm pretty happy with how it looks. This camera seems like it'd be great for interviews as a B or C camera. It could very well be a C camera. One thing I actually want to test with this camera is to see how it performs if it's plugged in externally recording. So not using a like a battery, just have it charging via USB, because it can work that way as well. I want to know if that makes the heat issues that people are having better or worse. We'll see. What else have we got in here? Would you pick it over the FX30? No, you can't compare it. Stop comparing it to these cameras. If you compare it, it's going to look like a bad camera. Of course it is, for reasons that people want to believe. But it's also, FX30 is a crop camera. This isn't a crop. This is a full frame camera, a tiny full frame camera. We got any other questions in here? Is it true that 4K 120 will not be available in Europe? I mean 4K 100 in PAL. So the information on 4K 120, I was looking this up earlier. So in the versions that we had, the firmware that we had, there was no 4K 120. The information that we were given is it could be coming. But on Sony's website, it does, on B&H's website, it says specifically check your latest firmware for the 4K 120. So to me, that means that it's going to be coming in a firmware update. My assumption right now is, again, I didn't have any issues with overheating, but other people said they did. 4K 120 is like the way to make the camera overheat, of course, right? So if there is any issues, then I'm sure they're trying to figure those out before they just give you 4K 120 and everyone just gets the camera and it goes mad, overheats, blows up or whatever. I don't know. It's not going to blow up, but you know what I mean. They want to make sure that it's good enough to give to the public before they start selling it with 4K 120. Hey there, can you send me a DM, please? Have you worked on big movie projects or just personal projects? You have a lot of knowledge. I feel it would help me a lot. Thank you for your time. I check my DMs randomly. I'm not in the business of just giving out free knowledge. My time is very valuable. I have coaching sessions specifically for that. If it's something that you have a lot of questions for, then I have coaching sessions literally for those reasons. If it's just a quick question, shoot me a DM. But I get so many DMs, it's hard to keep up with them. So I just have the same blanket policy for that. How does Canada compare to the UK, bro? I've always wanted to stay up in Canada. That is a topic for a different day. What was your favorite feature on it? The automatic reframing. I've got a video I literally didn't even mean to shoot, but we tested all the different ways for the auto reframing and I'm very impressed with it, especially for social media. And I've got a video coming out on that probably end of the week, early next week, because it's very impressive. And I think once people use it, they're going to really see the functionality being very useful. One thing I do want to see is the R5 here, the A7R5. From my understanding, it's the same chip that's in this, because the A7R5 has that AI stuff in it as well, but we don't have like the auto reframing. So I'm really hoping that we can get that in a firmware update on this. Are you going to get those features on the A7S3, FX3, A7 IV? No, you're not, because it's not the same chip. But should it come in this? I really, really hope so. What your thing about Sony ZV-E1? What you think? That's what this whole chat is about. Now the main question is, if you tip from Sony or if you ask them, will they finally give us the newbies on? Will they finally give us all these newbies on FX? No, because it's different chips. I didn't ask them because when you have different chips and different cameras, that's like saying when the new iPhone comes out, do you get the latest features on the new iPhone and the old iPhone? No, you don't. You got to buy the new one. But certain features can sometimes translate through software updates. But when you're talking about a completely different chip, to me, I don't see how that would be possible. So that's just my opinion, and I'm not very smart, but that's what I think. Your fave film DOP, again, that's a whole video in itself. Lots to discuss on that one. So it's not software. It is software, but it's a combination of the software and the hardware working together, because it's on that new chip, which is how the AI processing is done. All right, we're going to go to some questions I got here from Instagram stories earlier. So lens recommendations for the Sony ZV-E1. If you're using this as a vlogging-based camera, I'd probably say something like the 20mm f1.8. I put out a video today actually that is literally just vlogging in the cinematic mode with the ZV-E1 and the 20mm f1.8, and I really liked how it looked. Another option could be this new 17mm from Sigma, 17mm f4. Basically anything wide, really, if you're using it as a vlogging camera. The Tamron 20-40 f2.8 might also be a nice option for you. There's also a lot of talk of a new 1635 coming soon. I don't know anything about that, but some people say it might be coming. It is due to be replaced, but who knows? But then are you going to use that bigger lens on a tiny little body like that? I don't know. You probably want a smaller lens on the body. So yeah, something like the 17mm there would probably do pretty well. Is it truly great, or is mostly marketing hype from every creator? I mean, I liked it. Depends on what you're using it for. If you're using it for professional work, then no, it's not great. But if you're using it as a content creator, then I think genuinely it is great. I might say the price is a little bit higher than what I would anticipate content creators to want to pay. But I don't know. I kind of think that Sony will eventually bring it down in price. Just my personal opinion. But that's what I'd like to see. It's probably more what I'd like to see than actually what is going to happen. Overheating and customizing buttons. I think we've covered that in enough. Why this camera rather than the FX30? I'm a full frame person personally. I use things that I do a lot of stuff that often requires second base ISOs, low light capabilities, and you get better performance out of that on the FX3, A7S III, and then the ZV-E1 because it's that same sensor in there. Price. Let's just go and search it. It's right there. What's its strength and what's its weaknesses? Is it best for shooting or videos? Depends what you're using it for. What's its strength? A content creator's camera. Sony brought a bunch of content creators to shoot with it, and that's what we all did. Some people used it for different things other than other people, but I used it for vlogging, for making a video, and it did those jobs both very, very well. And I would use it again. I'm going to buy one specifically for shooting in automatic, not caring about shutter speed and that kind of thing, because I think for videos that go on the internet, nobody cares. Want to know if you recommend on the new Samyang VAF lenses. Oh, I got those right here. If anyone has any questions about those. There's a 24, a 35, and a 75. They're all exactly the same size, exactly the same weight, and they're technically considered cine lenses. Yet to figure out what is so cine about these, other than being a T-stop instead of an f-stop, which means the light coming in is like exactly the same between all lenses. You could put an f1.8 50 on compared to an f1.8 24, and the amount of light coming in might be a little bit different. When it's T-stops, not going to have that. Also, this is a linear focus, M1, M2, M1 being your focus, manual focus, autofocus, M2 is your aperture ring. So these are quite nice for that. Also, they have these little pins on the front, and these pins, from what we've been told, are going to allow Samyang to make adapters and things that go on the front here, accessories. I'd really love to see a VND that you can put on there, and then you can control the VND by turning the lens ring there, but that's just a hope, really. What other questions we got in here? Worth trading out for the A7S III? No. See previous points I made. Want to know if you recommend no, we just covered that. That's all the questions from there. Anybody have some questions in here? I probably missed a bunch of stuff now. I want to see you take a photo with a disposable camera and see how good you are. I actually have on that shelf up there some disposable cameras from years ago that I never got developed. So I actually learned to shoot photos on film. That's how my very first photos I took were shot on film. Aging myself a little bit here. This was in college, so the equivalent of like high school in the US. And took photos on film, and then we'd develop them inside these bags in classrooms, and then you'd go into the darkroom to really like blow them up. So I am very much capable of taking a photo on film. You underestimate me. I'm not saying I'm good, but I know how to take a photo. But disposable camera, I mean, that's just really essentially a point and shoot. So if you just want to know how good my composition is, I focus everything right in the middle. I'm all about symmetry. I currently use an A6400 for a locked off camera for weddings, like off to the side. Do you think this is overkill for that? No. If it works, why would it be overkill? Would the Sigma 17 be good with the ZV-E1? Just talked about that. I think it would be. ZV-E1 is a small camera, so you want a small lens to go with it. When you have a heavy lens on the front of a small camera, it's very off balance. It doesn't feel good in the hand, and it's just not nice to use. So smaller lenses are going to go better with a ZV-E1 because it's a smaller camera. Focus breathing composition should really come to the FX3, A7S III. It works on the A7 IV, which has the same chip other than the two. I agree. Couldn't agree more. I would love to see it on at least the FX3. The FX3 is the video version of the A7S III. The A7 IV is the hybrid version of kind of both those cameras, but yes, it's newer, so it has those features, but I think we should have at least focus breathing compensation on the FX3. But I do think we would have seen it by now, so do I think it's coming? Unlikely. What is your rating of In-N-Out? I think I said this in the video, that's from Lee, a solid 7.3. Now, that was my first time trying In-N-Out, if you haven't seen the video. I know about how much love Americans give it, and we don't generally have good fast food burgers here in Canada. I'd say the best is probably like A&W, but I was impressed. In-N-Out, in the video I said it tasted like it shouldn't be a fast food burger. It tasted like a homemade smash patty kind of thing, so I was impressed. 7.3. What else we got here? Thanks for adding me to the group chat. That helps a bit too. I don't know what you mean, but... Oh, I know what you're saying. You mean my my Brockhurst thing. Yeah, I like that. Being able to communicate with everyone directly. ZV-E1 or the ZV-1 or the new ZV-E1 for content creating. I feel old one is faster, more convenient. I actually have never even... I don't think so. I've never even used the ZV-E1, so I can't really comment on that. But ZV-E1 I was, as I said, very, very happy with for creating content. I would recommend it. Does the ZV-E1 replace the A7 IV and under what conditions? See previous points. Different category. Can't compare. The A7 IV is the best value hybrid out there right now. Make no mistake. Like if you're looking for a camera that does photo and video well, and you need it to do both well, A7 IV. As long as you can deal with a crop in 60, there's ways to get around that by buying wider lenses or whatever. But in generally speaking, A7 IV is the best hybrid. I think the ZV-1 is probably going to be better for video. I didn't really take a lot of photos with it. It's still 12 megapixels, so if that's enough for you, then sure. If you're looking for like the best of the best hybrid camera, A7R5. That's why I sold my A7S III to buy that. What else we got here? Hi. Hello. Any other questions here? Does anyone have any questions about anything camera related? I mean, we've talked about the ZV-E1. I've answered most of the questions that people had. If you have any questions related to anything else, this is going to be a long form kind of podcast style video that ends up on the channel, even though I'm talking to Instagram and the camera. But it's mostly there for people that want to listen to this. I want to try out the new podcast stuff on YouTube, so we'll see. Have you used the Tamron 35 to 150? I have. It was a very, very nice lens. Honestly, incredible what Tamron is doing these days, especially with that lens. It takes beautiful images, and the fact that it's 2 to 2.8, as in even when you're zoomed into 150, it's 2.8 still. It's very impressive, very sharp, and it's a fair price for what it offers. The biggest problem with that lens is it is heavy, very, very heavy. Like you could put it on a gimbal if you wanted to, but hand holding that thing and carrying it around for like traveling, it's a big, heavy, heavy lens. So you have to know about that. Max frames per second on the ZV-E1 right now 60. Are we getting 120? Hopefully, says we are on the B&H website at least. Thoughts on low light autofocus? If you tried it on a wildlife, that'd be great to know. Low light autofocus, so this is the same sensor as in the A7S III. So when you're getting your 2 base ISOs, now that second one at 12,800, it's going to work very, very well. It's going to work as well as it would work at 640, 800. I think it's 800, 640 on the FX3, right? With the new update. So low light performance is going to be second to none when it comes to a vlogging camera because you have those 2 base ISOs. If people don't know what that means, because I often say that and gloss over it, that essentially means that when you shoot at 800, the image is going to be the cleanest, as in you're not going to have the most amount, you're going to have the least amount of noise. As you start to go up through the ISOs, 5,000, you start to introduce noise into the image. When you hit 12,800, which is your second base ISO, you see a dramatic drop in your noise, and that's because of the circuit switching over to the second base ISO, which gets you less noise. So your performance is going to be really good at 12,800 because your image is going to be pretty bright. Brighter, the better it's going to function. Hope that makes sense. And A1, of course, you'll get it too. Focus breathing compensation. Yep. but the A1 is a little bit older now, so it's tough to say. It's people always complain, oh, I wish we could have everything on the new one, but you got to think as well that the way that tech progresses, especially now with the way that AI is going in ChatGPT and everything like that, the functionality that is starting to flow through is coming in at a wild pace. And there's no way, if the chips don't support AI, there's no way to implement those kinds of features into a chip that doesn't work with it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I know that we really want it, and I know that we sometimes hate that we spend so much money on these things and then they're outdated 6 months later, but it's just the nature of the world that we live in these days. The biggest thing I can tell you is that cameras, at least for Sony cameras, hold their value incredibly well, and you can often sell a camera 6 months after you've had it, 8 months after you have it, and really only lose a few $100s. So if you look at that from like a rental perspective, you've paid a few $100s to rent a camera for a little while. So keep your camera in good condition, or skin it. That way, when you go to sell it, you're making most of your money back. And if you really, really want those features, just upgrade. I do it. So, I mean, there's no reason why you can't do it as well. Hi, Chris. What's the best beginner camera for taking photos? Was thinking Sony platform. Probably A7 III is your best value right now. Still a fantastic camera. High megapixels. Great 1080p video. Shoots 4K. Definitely A7 III. And you can get it for a bargain right now. If you go on B&H has a great used platform for going on and searching new stuff, and you can monitor things. It gets updated every single day. You'll likely find one on there for pretty cheap, and they actually rate their stuff in terms of an out of 10 score as well. So if you're okay with the camera being like a bit banged up, excuse me, banged up, you'll get it for a lot cheaper. The lower down the 10 score you go, the cheaper things get pretty dramatically. So as long as it works fine, you'll be good. Zach says, favorite lens, 24mm f1.4. But I am going to be testing that compared to this little 24mm t1.9 Samyang. I want to see how they compare. Do you recommend the Samyang lenses? Yeah, we already just talked about those. I haven't used them enough to say yet, but used them a little bit when we were away, and they seem pretty solid so far. It's hard to... Any lenses nowadays that come out, and I've said this before in videos, it's really hard for me to do these autofocus tests all the time because they're all good. Like they're all good these days. When it's combined with the body and it has the eye tracking and the AI and like the new cameras, the autofocus is so good. Even when you're not facing the camera, there's no face detection on there. This will know where my head is, even if my face isn't looking at the camera, and it will try and figure out where the focus is, and it does a really phenomenal job. Even with older lenses now, you can breathe new light into, I posted a video a while back now, the 50mm f1.8, the autofocus on that is pretty garbage on an older camera, but if you put it on a newer body, it performs really, really well. So when you combine it with newer bodies, any lens these days, the autofocus is pretty solid. There is no bad lenses these days. Thoughts on Cine EI? So I actually have a video coming on Cine EI, but stay tuned. What else we got in here? Hi Chris, what's the best beginner camera for take... Oh, we've already gone there. Oh no, it's the same question. Best beginner camera, A7 III. Answered that. Asked that a little while back. Still have my A6000, takes nice photos, all about the lens. It's true. It's true if you're happy with a crop camera. I had an A6000, it was one of my first cameras. An A6300 and an A6000, and that was my A and B camera when we first started shooting weddings, so nothing wrong with those cameras. Ian, effing love the hair. Definitely wasn't expecting that. Yeah, it's a bit frizzy. Everyone's loving the hair. I guess I need to stop wearing a hat. Can you charge over $10,000 for a client project with an A7S III? Yeah, why not? If your work's good enough, they use A7S IIIs to shoot movies. Like, absolutely. You can charge whatever you want. You can charge whatever you want. It's all about whether a client can pay it, and that's more to do with like the work that you produce over what the camera can do. So, you always create valuable content. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate that. Why 24? I could shoot everything 24. I just like the wide look in general. I'm starting to like appreciate a 35 a bit more, but I still generally like a 24. I feel like a 24 is wide enough where you can start getting close to the lens and you don't really have much warping or perspective issues. You go a little bit wider, like 20, you start to see it. So I feel like I could shoot everything with a 24. Like a 24 lives on my where is it? My dad cam, which is my FX6. Yes, I use an FX6 for a dad cam. My 24 lives on that. Would you recommend this camera to a content creator upgrading from their phone as their first mirrorless camera? Absolutely, 100%. If you're worried about the overheating that everyone's talking about, maybe wait a little bit till it gets like brought out into the wild in terms of everyone's able to actively buy it and do their own tests with full production firmware. Then maybe wait a bit, but I think if it performs how my unit performed, I had it for a couple of days, I think you'll be very happy upgrading from a phone. What is subject? The subject is the ZV-E1 and cameras. Just shot my first wedding with a Red Dragon 6K Ronin 4D and a Sony A7S II. Wow, that's quite the setup there that you've got. I hope you're matching those well in terms of colors. That's also a lot of gear to take to a wedding. Good for you though. I have an old Canon 1200D still working fine. Yep, great DSLR. My first camera was a Canon 60D. I have an A7 IV with a 24-70 GM1. You think it's a good setup? Absolutely. And if you don't think it's good enough, then in the nicest way possible, you got to learn it a little bit more. That's a fantastic setup. I like your video. Thank you. I like you. Lots of people here. Desert Island lens, the 24mm. Yep. Do you think Sony will ever produce a lens like the Orange RF f2 zoom lens from Canon? The Orange RF f2. You mean the 28-70? I think that's what you mean. You mean the big boy. I've used that lens on the R5. It's very nice. Beautiful images. Very, very heavy. So yeah, maybe. I don't know. I see what Sony does now as trying to make everything more compact. When you put a lens like a massive behemoth 28-70 on a little tiny R5 body, it's very front heavy. Same as when you put the 35-150 on this, it's very, very front heavy. It's not comfortable to use in the hand. So yes, it looks nice, but you got to be practical sometimes about how your gear feels to use. Would you go for a new camera, buy some more lenses for my old Canon 1200D? Well, the thing with the Canon ecosystem now is, from my understanding, EF is dead. As in, you can still buy the lenses, they're just not making or putting any more time, money, R&D into new ones. So to me, that means the RF system is the way forwards. So as good as the 1200D is, it might be time to start looking at something that's RF if you want to stay within Canon. What else we got here? I have a Sony GM24-70. Is it worth to upgrade to the GM2? If you want a smaller lens, a lot smaller and a lot lighter, then yes. Otherwise, the GM Mark 1 is still perfectly fine. A lot of people use it. You can get that for a bargain as well right now. What Premier League club do you support? I don't really follow football anymore, soccer, for you North Americans. It used to be Manchester United though. I fell out of being in the whole going to the pub, watching the games thing when I moved from Canada 12 years ago, and it's really hard to stay up to date with Premier League because friends aren't here. I don't have that pub environment. There's nothing like that here. And what was the other point as well? Oh, the time difference. So not really great to watch a game at 8 a.m. in the morning compared to going to the pub and watching it at 12 or 3 or whatever. You are handsome. Oh, that's very kind of you. Tell my wife. Would the new Sigma APS-C primes help with the crop of the dynamic active stabilization while using this camera? So a lot of people don't realize this. Active stabilization will work well with third-party lenses, but it's going to work way better with Sony lenses than it is with Sigma lenses, Viltrox lenses, Tamron lenses, Samyang. Any third-party lens on any newer Sony body nowadays, active stabilization isn't going to be as good as if you're using a Sony lens. So that's something to think about there. Still probably going to make a video about that. I haven't seen anyone cover that in detail, so I kind of want to do a video about that. But it is a big difference. I've shown a couple of comparisons in some of my recent videos, and it's noticeably different. Love from India. Hello. For video, do you prefer Canon or Sony? Are you new here? Sony. That's fair. Thank you. Love your content. You're one of my inspirations. Appreciate you. Thank you. I found the A7 III has bad overheating problems. A7 III? Really? They're using it in a sauna? I don't remember my A7 III overheating. It's been a while though. Between a Sony 100-400 lens and a Sigma 100-400 lens, which is better? Well, probably the Sony. If you're using it handheld on a tripod, it probably doesn't make much difference, but like I just said, active stabilization is going to be better on a Sony lens, so especially with a zoom, you notice it quite substantially. United, I knew you're a good man. I mean, I said I don't follow it anymore, but whatever floats your boat. Hey, Hello. From Poland. Best regards. Hello. Well, how long have we been going? I think we've got lots of questions answered here. If you have any other questions about the ZV-E1, this is going to be a video that lives on the channel as a longer form podcast, completely unedited, just slapped right up there, ready to go for you to listen. The three of you that will probably listen to it. So thank you for stopping by and joining this today. I'll probably do one of these once a week. That's the goal. I might give up on that by next week, but we'll see. Thanks for watching, everyone. So this was a bit of a harder video to really talk freely on. I realized having a live there at the same time because the focus really goes on live. But I hope this is something that I can do more regularly, because I think it's important to just be able to talk openly about cameras and not have to have a super congested, like tight edit, and really talk about the experience of using these cameras and testing out things in gear in full, because I have so much gear right now just sitting here waiting to be tested, and sometimes I really want to make like a 20-30 minute video about it, but I just don't have the time to do it. So having a more open, like half an hour chat is really a good way that would allow me to do that. So we'll see if this is a format that I can continue. Unedited has to be the way to go though, because as soon as you start editing, it just really screws things up. But yeah, really interested to try these lenses out. I'm one of the lucky few that managed to get the Samyang lenses here that we're talking about, if you're just listening to this, and they are called automatic cinema glass. So it's like the first cine glass that is technically automatic focus or autofocus. There's a 24 right now, a 35 and a 75, and there's also going to be a 20 and I think 100 as well. The big thing is that they're all the same size, they're all the same weight, which means if you want to, because they're cine lenses, fly them on a gimbal, you can take one prime off, put another prime on, and you're not going to have any balance issues. Now, really, that isn't a big deal these days anymore, with motors being as strong as they are, being able to counter any little imbalances. But it's a good idea from Samyang to come out with something like this. It's different, and I like different, because different sometimes is the way that things can improve and how we get change. In case you weren't aware, Samyang is Rokinon. Samyang is, I believe, in the Asian markets, that's what it's called, and then in North America it's technically called Rokinon, but I see more Samyang kind of coming over here now compared to Rokinon. Don't know why that is. Rokinon is more synonymous with some of their cinema primes, but I guess this will be a bit of a change for them. Try something different, maybe. It's like a rebrand, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, these lenses, they're interesting. They do have a filter thread on the front, but it's very small, and then they have those little pins that you can attach things to. So it will be interesting to see what they can do with that, and that will be, I think, what dictates how well these lenses do, because realistically speaking, yes, they're cinema primes, but what's to stop you going and using a 24 f1.4? What's to stop you going and using a 35 f1.8 from Sony? Because those are technically better lenses. They're going to work with things like focus breathing compensation, and these won't, because they're third-party lenses. I guess the biggest thing maybe would be the price, because these, from my understanding, are going to be quite a bit cheaper than anything else that's out there. So we'll see. I think that'll do for now. If you listened or watched, I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next video or podcast, whatever this ends up being. See you later.